Welcome to this event, a continuation of the launching of 20 by 20 at COP20 in Lima. My name is Walter Vergara at the World Resources Institute. Thanks for coming. A year ago, Initiative 20 by 20 was launched at COP20 by governments in the region with the objective of changing the dynamics of land degradation in Latin America and in support of the Bond Challenge. At that time, 7 nations and 5 investors announced an effort to initiate restoration of 20 million hectares by 2020 and earmark about $400 million in private risk capital to complement other resources in these investments. The initiative was conceived as a mechanism to address food security issues, soil, water, and biodiversity conservation, create jobs, and create a sizable carbon sink. On this last point, we now estimate that 20 by 20, when fully deployed, will create a 5 gigaton of carbon dioxide equivalent carbon sink in the region. This is about the amount of all the emissions of a country like Colombia in 1 year. 20 by 20 was expected to support these objectives in a manner that is financially and economically attractive for investors, local communities, and for the planet. At that time, we all thought that this was an ambitious goal to commit to. Yes, it was, and it remains to be. Also, the partners knew at the outset that the real test of the initiative was the ability to show results in the short term. Tomorrow, private impact investors under 20 by 20 will share details on 9 specific, innovative, ambitious restoration investments already on the ground in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Peru, and other countries. You are invited to participate in that forum. But here today, new and newer members will confirm that the initiative involves now 10 countries and 2 states in Brazil with a combined goal of nearly 25 million hectares. So we'll have to change the title of the initiative from 20 to 20 to 25 by 20. Supported by 9 impact investors earmarking over $700 million in support. Also, the members of the initiative recognize that a supporting financial architecture is required to make good on these ambitions and earmarks. It is well understood that key barriers to facilitate the flow of private risk capital into restoration in Latin America include the lack of good risk management tools and a robust portfolio of investments. So here today, IDB, a regional multilateral development bank through its private sector group, will announce the setup of a partial risk guarantee for investments in land restoration under 20 by 20. Before we go into these announcements, I would like also to welcome the recent involvement of Canada Partnership in the initiative and welcome the presence of Eduardo Tuventat at this event. Eduardo, thanks. With him, we now have 9 private impact investors in the initiative. May I also recognize the arrival of Fumbio in Brazil to the initiative. Fumbio manages the most successful conservation program worldwide, and I want to welcome the presence of its executive director, Rosa Lemos, at the event. Fumbio is now an institutional partner, joining 10 other organizations supporting 20 by 20. Welcome, Rosa, and welcome, Fumbio. In the end, 20 by 20 is no more than a regional effort by governments, investors, and technical parties to advance the goal of land restoration in our region. Before I finish, let me also recognize the tireless work of my colleagues Maria Franco and Luciana Gallardo in the technical support and structuring of these events at the GLF, as well as the entire WRI team. Let me then at this point call my good friend, the executive director of CATIE, Jose Joaquin Campos, and an institutional partner of the initiative, to present the government and banking officials that will make specific announcements. Thank you, Jose Joaquin.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Walter. And my name is Jose Joaquin Campos. I'm the Director General of CATIE, research, education, and technical assistance organization working in Latin America and the Caribbean. Before I introduce the panelists here, the ministers, and the other representatives, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Minister Luis Felipe Arauz, Minister of Agriculture of Costa Rica, who is also a great supporter of land restoration, and he's going to announce, along with other ministers from the region, a very innovative initiative in Central America and Dominican Republic on climate-smart agriculture, which is a way also of doing climate-smart restoration. CATIE's role in this very fascinating and also challenging partnership is about developing knowledge, the research, applied research, the training, education, technical assistance, along with partners. This is a huge endeavor that requires collaboration, and we couldn't achieve it unless we all work together with a common and a shared vision. And as Walter mentioned, this initiative was launched only a year ago, and now we should call it the 20+20 initiative, because the year 20 by 20 stays, but the target is now +20, and I'm so glad to hear that. And so bringing together decision makers from the public sector, policy makers, along with investors, along with technical assistance, research, scientific organization, lots of them. This is the only way to achieve the objectives of landscape restoration, land restoration. So I would like to start with our first panelist. Is going to be my friend and colleague from Honduras, Minister Jose Antonio Galdames. He is the Secretary of State and Ministry of Energy, Natural Resources, Environment, and Mining in Honduras, who is involved himself in several innovative initiatives in the region. And he's going to mention about Honduras' commitment to this initiative on land restoration, 20 by 20. Minister Galdames, please.
Buenas tardes. ¿Hablan español? Sí. Ok, no hay problema. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Hoy es un día muy especial para nosotros, las hondureñas y los hondureños. Quiero, en primer lugar, agradecer a Dios por estar aquí con ustedes, compartiendo esta tarde, esta oportunidad única que tenemos nosotros para formar parte de esta iniciativa 2020. Nos sentimos muy halagados de poder ser parte de ella. También quiero aprovechar para felicitar a nuestros amigos del World Resource Institute, del Centro Internacional de Agricultura Tropical y del Centro Agronómico Tropical de Investigación y Enseñanzas del CATIE, así como la Unión Internacional para la Conservación de la Naturaleza, por este esfuerzo global que se está haciendo. Un esfuerzo al que Honduras se une para lograr esta meta de restauración de 20 millones de hectáreas y que comencemos antes del año 2020. Muchos de ustedes creo que se preguntarán, pero Honduras, si no lo conocen o si no han tenido la oportunidad de estar en el país más hermoso del mundo, quiero decirles que nos encontramos en el centro de América. Somos un país pequeño, 112.492 kilómetros cuadrados, pero que tenemos mucha riqueza cultural y riqueza natural. 9 culturas vivas, todavía pueblos indígenas y afrohondureños que están presentes en nuestro país. Tenemos el 50% perdón, de la cobertura forestal todavía de nuestros bosques. La mitad de nuestro país está cubierto de bosques. Tenemos un 30% del país en condición de área natural protegida. También es una gran responsabilidad, un gran reto que hemos tenido como país y lo hemos asumido declarando áreas de reserva en Honduras, y sin temor a equivocarme, creo que somos el que tiene mayor cobertura en reservas forestales de todo Centroamérica. También tenemos la segunda barrera arrecifal más importante del mundo. Tenemos 2 sitios de patrimonio de la humanidad, la biosfera del río Plátano y también las ruinas de Copán, ciudad científica por excelencia de los mayas, de la cultura maya. Y además recientemente se ha descubierto un lugar que nosotros denominamos Ciudad Blanca, que no está ligada ni a la cultura inca, ni a la maya, ni a la azteca. Probablemente estemos al encuentro de una nueva civilización y vamos a estar trabajando en eso. Por esas razones, aunque somos un país que tiene muy pocas emisiones, consideramos que debemos unirnos a este esfuerzo, y así lo hicimos en agosto del presente año en el marco del Bond Challenge latinoamericano, del cual esta iniciativa es parte fundamental. Nosotros nos unimos a este proceso, sumarnos para que al final lleguemos a esos 150 millones de hectáreas de recuperación y ponerlas nuevamente en restauración. Honduras expuso esta meta, es una gran ambición. Los esfuerzos regionales y globales creemos que debemos alcanzarlos de manera conjunta, y estamos estableciendo en todo este proceso nuestro compromiso para la restauración de 1 millón de hectáreas para tenerlas al año 2030. Ok, sí, no sé, por favor. Mi amigo José Joaquín me va a ayudar a hacer un resumen.
Just a very short summary, because this summary means that I have forgotten a few of the important things, but Minister Galdames said that he is very honored, very enthusiastic of being part of this initiative. Honduras is the most beautiful country in the world and has 50% of forest cover, and out of that, 30% of the country is under protected areas. So it has a rich natural capital, the second largest coral reef in the world as well, very rich in culture as well, Maya civilizations, a new discovery now as well. And he himself attended a regional meeting of the Bond Challenge in August in San Salvador, where Honduras committed 1.5 million hectares of land to be restored as part of this initiative 20 by 20.
Sí, gracias. Y este compromiso también lo ha manifestado el presidente de la República en su participación durante la sesión inicial de apertura de la cumbre. El presidente Hernández lo manifestó, ese compromiso de restauración, y también fue muy enfático en lo siguiente: para Honduras, el tema del cambio climático no es un asunto únicamente de calidad ambiental. Es un asunto que trae consigo enfermedades para las personas, como ya se está viviendo en Honduras, enfermedades para nuestros bosques, problemas para la seguridad alimentaria. Para nosotros, el tema del cambio climático en muchas regiones del país es un asunto de vida o muerte. Por eso debemos hacer estos compromisos como los que hoy estamos realizando. En ese sentido, hemos iniciado el diseño de un plan nacional de restauración bajo la visión compartida de restauración a través de paisajes productivos. En esa línea vamos a estar nosotros haciendo nuestros esfuerzos, con lo cual contribuiremos no solamente a restaurar tierras degradadas a través de programas de reforestación y plantaciones, sino que también vamos a buscar generar una agricultura sustentable que genere empleos y que permita reducir la brecha de la pobreza en las comunidades más vulnerables de nuestro país.
Thank you very much, Minister. And this commitment has also been ratified by the President of Honduras, and he actually presented this commitment at the Climate Summit here this week. And they see this not only because of environmental concerns, but also because it's about human livelihoods, human welfare, health, and it's going to be introduced into national plans, and also they are going to promote sustainable agriculture as part of this commitment.
Y para finalizar, queremos dejar también una posición en el recuerdo de ustedes y que lo tengan presente, que este tema de cambio climático debe dársele un rostro humano. No va a ser posible que nosotros sigamos avanzando en una meta pensando únicamente en áreas, pensando en grados, pensando en temas como resiliencia. Eso no va a ser posible si no le damos un rostro humano al cambio climático. Y en Honduras ya lo estamos haciendo a través de un programa gubernamental que se llama Vida Mejor, por medio del cual tenemos actividades en las cuales cambiamos los techos de las casas, ponemos canales para cosecha de agua, hacemos tanques, reservorios de agua, tenemos huertos familiares para la seguridad alimentaria y tenemos un producto que entregamos, el producto estrella nuestro, que es un ecofogón o una estufa limpia, mediante la cual estamos ahorrando 15 árboles de tamaño medio todos los años por cada ecofogón que instalamos. Eso significa unos 3.7 toneladas que se dejan de emitir estos gases a la atmósfera, y esa contribución es la que están haciendo las familias más pobres de Honduras con ese compromiso que tenemos a nivel de país. Les recuerdo, favor démosle un rostro humano al cambio climático, y de esa manera las personas que son las más afectadas, principalmente en países vulnerables como el nuestro, se van a unir a esta lucha. Muchas gracias.
Yes. Minister Galdames calls for putting people in the front of climate change, and this is what Honduras is doing, working with the most vulnerable people in the country, the poorest people. You have to see that Honduras is among the top 3 most vulnerable countries in the world, actually the region of Central America as well. And so that's why it's so important to, as he says, to put people first. And I remember some of the discussions of the activities going on about art. Art is so important because I think it's a very effective way of communicating and transforming people's mindset. Minister Galdames, thank you very much. Another round of applause for the commitment of Honduras. We'll stay in Central America, and it's a pleasure of mine to introduce my friend Jorge Mario Rodriguez. Jorge Mario Rodriguez is going to speak on behalf of Minister Edgar Gutierrez, Minister of Environment of Costa Rica. Jorge Mario Rodriguez is the director of the National Fund on Forest Finance, that's been working for almost 20 years now, about 18 years, and very innovative financial mechanisms like payment for ecosystem services that has made Costa Rica well known internationally. So, Jorge Mario, you are going to speak in Spanish as well. If you say a few things, yo le traduzco.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes a las compañeras y a los compañeros de mesa. Muy buenas tardes a todos ustedes que nos acompañan hoy en este tan importante acto. Sí quiero venirle aquí a manifestar, bueno, excusar como lo hace don José Joaquín, la ausencia, la no presencia de nuestro ministro de Ambiente, don Edgar Gutiérrez. Él estaba llegando no hace mucho al hotel, por lo tanto no nos puede acompañar. Entonces me corresponde a mí comunicarles parte de lo que él presentó recientemente en una reunión en El Salvador de ministros que le dan seguimiento a lo que es el desafío BON, o la intención o el objetivo de recuperar las 150 millones de hectáreas a nivel del mundo que están en proceso de degradación o en vías de degradación.
So Jorge Mario is excusing Minister Edgar Gutierrez, who was engaged in other commitments here, and he couldn't come, but he is very well aware of the decision of the minister and the policies in the country.
Sí, desde el momento mismo que sale esta iniciativa, Costa Rica consideró que podía mucho que ofrecer en tanto se conocieran las cosas que venimos realizando ya desde hace muchos años, pero también conscientes de que en nuestro territorio, que si bien es cierto, un territorio pequeño, porque estamos hablando de 5.100.000 hectáreas, sí somos conscientes que años atrás algunas prácticas no amigables por el ambiente provocaron que muchas de las hectáreas que hoy están en la parte productiva no necesariamente corresponden al mejor uso del suelo de esa finca o de esa área.
Yes, since the beginning of when this 20 by 20 initiative was launched, Costa Rica was aware of the importance of this initiative, and though the country has achieved a lot in restoring some abandoned lands, the institutions understand, acknowledge that there are some lands that are now being used in productive activities that shouldn't be, are not appropriate for those uses.
Estudios recientes que se han hecho en el país, en donde está considerado entre ellos el estudio de cobertura forestal, que nos indica que tenemos un 53% de cobertura forestal, nos provee a nosotros una gran herramienta de presentación, de presentación en el sentido de que, si bien es cierto, Costa Rica en años atrás, en la década de los 70, 80, fue un campeón de deforestación, hoy podemos decir que tenemos más bosque hoy que el que teníamos ayer, porque venimos en una recuperación muy importante, producto de diferentes iniciativas que se han hecho, tanto en el Ministerio de Agricultura y Ganadería como en el Ministerio de Ambiente y Energía.
Yes, the country has now, based on several studies, 53% of forest cover, and this is higher than the forest cover that Costa Rica used to have 20, 30 years ago. And when Costa Rica was acknowledged by FAO studies as the country with the largest deforestation rate in percentage in the world. And this is because of, this restoration took place because of policies implemented by Ministry of Agriculture, Environment as well, payment for ecosystem services, so restrictions on logging as well.
Otro de los estudios recientes que se ha elaborado y que tenemos información muy fresca es lo que es el censo agropecuario, que se hizo el año pasado. También nos reveló información muy importante que nos permite a nosotros planificar cuál es la mejor manera de intervención en esas áreas que, si no se actúan en forma inmediata o en forma pronta, probablemente la degradación que algunas áreas o zonas va a continuar y por lo tanto la capacidad de producción se va a disminuir. Es por eso que con estos informes o estos estudios recientes que se han hecho y considerando indicadores o parámetros como lo que es la protección de la biodiversidad, lo que es la protección del recurso hídrico, lo que son zonas que están en conflicto de uso porque no están en el uso más adecuado hoy, es que Costa Rica planteó en la reunión del 20 de agosto, en la reunión de ministros, el compromiso de intervención de 1 millón de hectáreas para asumida por el desafío de
Based on those studies and on the conflicting uses of the land, the Costa Rica committed in a ministers' meeting in San Salvador the restoration of an additional 1 million hectares of land.
Este grado de intervención que nosotros estamos pensando está muy relacionado con iniciativas que venimos desarrollando tanto en el Ministerio de Agricultura como en el Ministerio de Ambiente. Ahí estamos hablando de iniciativas que ya ustedes conocen porque probablemente la han escuchado no aquí sino en los diferentes foros internacionales en que hemos participado, en donde estamos muy avanzados en lo que es el desarrollo de la estrategia Red Costa Rica. Tenemos muy avanzado lo que es la iniciativa del NAMA Ganadería, tenemos muy avanzado lo que es la iniciativa de NAMA Café y todas estas áreas que nosotros hemos considerado que pueden impactarse, que pueden intervenirse, es lo que nosotros hemos sumado y cuantificado para llegar a decir, podemos comprometernos con ese hectareaje y lo estamos haciendo de una buena forma. Obvio es que el esfuerzo nacional no es suficiente, sino es que tenemos la colaboración de la cooperación internacional para que, adicional al esfuerzo que venimos realizando como costarricenses, la cooperación internacional también se diga presente para contribuir con este gran desafío y llegar a cumplir en el 2030 la meta que hemos planteado.
These million hectares are going to be achieved working together the ministers of Agriculture and Environment, integrating, for example, the RED strategy in the country. And the country has also developed the NAMA for the coffee sector, the NAMA for the livestock sector, and more NAMAs that will be developed. So this is the commitment that the country will, how the country will achieve these million hectares.
Bueno, eso es lo que yo tenía que decirles también, ya para finalizar, que Costa Rica aspira a un crecimiento con prácticas ambientales, a un crecimiento verde, y que también somos conscientes de que no solo con el esfuerzo nacional podemos nosotros llegar a lograr este tan anhelado objetivo. Muchas gracias.
Well, this is part of a green growth strategy that the country has established. So we don't have much time. I'm sorry, I probably need to have even a shorter summary. And now, well, to continue in Central America, I'm going to introduce from Nicaragua, Dr. Paul Oquist, who is the Minister for Private Secretary for National Policies, and he's going also to mention the commitment from Nicaragua.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I would like to put Nicaragua's combating climate change and reducing poverty in its socioeconomic context. Nicaragua is growing at about 5% a year, the highest rate in Central America, due to having doubled the exports and increased the foreign direct investment 5 times. This was achieved with macroeconomic stability of single-digit inflation, reserves at the highest level ever, that have led to no exchange controls and no capital controls. We have a manageable deficit situation. The public debt has been reduced, and we have that the employment has been increased also. Change the slide, please. We are now at the situation where we are at the point where we are going to launch a major reforestation effort. Change, please. This effort is linked to our strategy for poverty reduction and to our strategy for adaptation to climate change. Poverty has been reduced, and by 2014, we now have the results that extreme poverty has gone from 17% in 2005 to 14% in 2009 and to 8.3% in 2014. Change. This means that we are going to be able to overcome extreme poverty in coming years. We have $10.9 billion in contracted investment portfolio, of which 257 million are in the forestry sector. Change. We also have the project of the Grand Interoceanic Canal, which is going to provide for resources to overcome extreme poverty and adapt to climate change by means of reforestation to increase the resilience of our ecosystems and increase economic independence. Change. This will also produce 178 square kilometers of land on the basis of no wastage in the construction for agricultural and forestry projects. Change. Nicaragua has delimited and titled the indigenous and Afro-descendant land. This is over 37,000 square kilometers. This is more square kilometers than Belgium or El Salvador. It's a little less than Holland. And so this is a major step towards the autonomy of the indigenous people with their own institutions, and very much linked to this is community forestry and our forestry projects. Change. The major problem we have is that monster you see, the red one, that red dragon, which is the agricultural frontier, which stretches from border to border, and it's a classical agricultural frontier. And as you can see below, It is eating the forest at an accelerated rate. Change. We now are in the process of seeking to stop the agricultural frontier. Change. Through our forestry programs and agroforestry and silvopastoral programs. We have 3.9 million hectares, and we have a commitment within 2020 to reforest 2.9 million hectares of degraded lands, which have been the victim of this agricultural frontier. Change. The forestry industry per se is also taking off at this point in time. Change. And we have forest sector investment. We are going to practice all forms of forestry, protecting better our reserve areas for natural reforestation, which of course is the best reforestation, but also agroforestry and silvopastoral schemes, which have proved very successful in the country. And then energy plantations, wood, construction wood and furniture wood plantations, plantations of tropical hardwoods that can be in plantations like teak, and then to take other tropical hardwoods like the Daburgias and make them into agroforestry and silvopastoral. Change. We are looking for how to use landscape approaches in this procedure. Change. And change. And our strategy is to use these landscape approaches on the mountains of the north and northeast Nicaragua along the lines you can see there. This will allow us to sequester 11 million tons of carbon, CO2 equivalent in the next 5 years, which is over 2 years of our current emissions, which in Nicaragua are 4.8 million tons a year. We've already reduced 2.1 million tons every year by going from 27% renewable to 52% renewable between 2007 and 2014. Now the forestry sector will allow us to save this 11 million tons. And we are in an international commitment which will allow us to draw on $55 million to incentivize that process. I would just like to finish to mention to you how we're going to stop the agricultural frontier. It's by providing the people on the agricultural frontier with food, genetic material, and technical assistance, and some financial assistance for family farms and cooperatives. Also for the communal lands and the indigenous and Afro-descendant populations, the same thing, and simultaneously cash crop genetic material and technical assistance. And this is cocoa, rubber, bamboo, and other valuable crops like marañón, cashew. But they take 3 to 5 years to come online. And at the same time provide forestry genetic material that will take 20, 25 years, but if they plant that year by year for the next 20, 25 years, they will have their agricultural income, their cash crop income, and then year by year they'll be able to get into forestry income also. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Oquist, for this commitment from Nicaragua. So 3 countries in Central America that have added to the commitments to restore land. Now we're going to move to another country where we have representatives from 3 states. I'm going to start, it's Brazil. I'm going to start with Dr. Patricia Iglesias, who is the Secretary of Environment from the state of São Paulo in Brazil.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a big honor to speak at this prestigious encounter, along with other environmental political leaders of Latin America. I would like especially to thank all partners of Initiative 2020, here represented by Mr. Walter Vergara, for enabling this event. It's with great pleasure that I announce the acceptance of the State of São Paulo to Initiative 2020, with the ambitious goal of registering in our territory a total of 300,000 hectares of ecosystems undergoing restoration by 2020. The significant climate environmental challenges faced by the world demand concrete and ambitious actions by all to ensure the sustainable development, the social welfare, and the protection of the human life dignity. We have reached a point in which we cannot continue delaying efforts to preserve our nature. Among the measures to be adopted, we recognize the importance of the ecological restoration. The INDC announced by Brazil involves significant restoration goals, which can only be achieved if the states, the regions, contribute actively in this. The biodiversity of the state of São Paulo is among the most complex of Brazil. The entire area of our state is covered by 2 global biodiversity hotspots: the Atlantic Forest, Mata Atlântica, and the Cerrado, known as Brazilian savanna, exuberant biomes that hold a significant part of the world's biodiversity. We know that all our efforts are necessary to preserve these hotspots and the ecosystem services provided by them. But through our history, a great amount of our native vegetation was suppressed. It started with the extensive coffee plantations, and then came the intense urbanization. The state of São Paulo, representing less than 3% of the Brazilian territory, holds 21% of the whole Brazilian population. We initiated our reforestation of efforts in 90s, and now in 2009 we also have something like 17.5 of native vegetation coverage. The government of São Paulo is now developing a very significant initiative called the Riparian Forest Program. This is a great program to maintain and recover springs and riparian forests located in São Paulo, aiming to restore a total of 20,000 hectares of riparian forests and protect 6,000 kilometers of rivers and water streams by 2018. In its first, I will pass. In addition, we estimate that over the next 4 years, we achieve more than 223,000 hectares of restoration with the Environmental Adjustment Program for Rural Properties. Over 56,000 hectares will be restored through agro-environmental protocols with the sugarcane and the forest sectors. Actions such as this will need all the help they can get to be carried out and expanded. It's thus very significant for us to be joining the initiative 20 by 20. Since we hope we can collaborate internationally on these issues. Thank you so much for your attention.
Muito obrigado, secretária Iglesias, pelo lançamento, anúncio do seu compromisso. Now we are going to continue in Brazil. We are moving to another very nice state, which is the state of Mato Grosso, We are honored to have here as well Anna Peterlin, who is the Secretary of Environment for the state of Mato Grosso, who is going also to make an announcement. Diante.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but I don't speak in English very well. I prefer that Raquel translate for me. Thank you. Eu sou secretária do Meio Ambiente do Mato Grosso. Queria agradecer o convite de participar desse evento e falar um pouco sobre a perspectiva de Mato Grosso e as metas que nós traçamos para os próximos anos.
I'm State Secretary for Environment of the State of Mato Grosso. I want to thank you for the invitation, and I'm going to talk about the perspectives for the next years for our state.
Mato Grosso é um estado continental. Nós temos uma área de 900 mil quilômetros quadrados.
Mato Grosso is a very big state, 900,000 hectares. No, sorry, kilometers. Square kilometers.
E dentro desse território, 60% dele é preservado de áreas de vegetação nativa.
60% is protected areas.
Nós temos 33% do território com áreas protegidas.
33% are protected areas.
Entre unidades de conservação e terras indígenas.
Including indigenous areas and protected areas.
E um território que contempla 53% de floresta.
53% of the state is covered by forests.
40% de cerrado, como uma savana.
40% of cerrado, which is a type of savanna.
E 7% pantanal.
7% of the Pantanal, the humid areas region.
E temos feito um esforço muito grande para preservar e conservar essa biodiversidade.
We have made a big effort to conserve and protect the biodiversity.
Nos últimos 10 anos, Mato Grosso reduziu em 90% o desmatamento.
In the last 10 years, Mato Grosso has reduced deforestation by quanto? Sorry?
90%.
90% in the last 10 years.
Isso representa uma redução de 1,9 gigatonelada de carbono.
Which is 1.9 gigatons of carbon.
E apesar dessa contribuição que Mato Grosso tem dado, né, o governo do governador Pedro Taques pretende avançar ainda mais.
Governor Taques wants to go even further in terms of carbon reduction, emissions reductions.
E tem um planejamento que foi traçado em conjunto com a sociedade civil e o setor privado, que há uma estratégia de produzir, conservar e incluir.
The strategy built with participation of civil society and private sector is to conserve, include and
produce. O primeiro pilar deste plano, o produzir, nós pretendemos até 2030.
The first pillar is to produce, so until 2030.
Intensificar, substituir 6 milhões de hectares de pastagem de baixa produtividade.
We want to substitute 6 million hectares of low production pasture
por cultivos de alta produtividade.
By high productivity crops.
Tanto de pecuária quanto de agricultura.
Including cattle ranching and agriculture.
Pretendemos também aumentar a área de manejo florestal sustentável de 2,8 milhões de hectares para 6 milhões de hectares.
We want to increase the forest management from 2.5 to 6 million hectares.
E no pilar conservar, que para nós talvez seja o mais desafiador,
the conservation pillar is the most challenging.
Nós pretendemos manter esse 60% de cobertura vegetal nativa.
We want to maintain the 60% of native forest or native vegetation conserved.
Isso. Porque Mato Grosso é um estado que está em pleno desenvolvimento e produção e tem uma potencialidade agropecuária muito grande.
Mato Grosso is in high development economic development with big production of cattle and agriculture.
E para cumprirmos com esse desafio, né, a proposta é de reduzir o desmatamento ilegal, eliminar o desmatamento ilegal até 2020.
We want to eliminate illegal deforestation by 2020.
E talvez o mais esperado nesse evento é que a gente anuncie a recomposição, a recuperação de 2,9 milhões de hectares de áreas de preservação permanente e reserva legal.
So she's announcing a pledge here to recover 2.9 million hectares of territory in the state of Mato Grosso, 2.9 million hectares.
Isso, sendo 1 milhão de áreas de preservação permanente e 1.900.000 de áreas de reserva legal.
1 million of protected areas and 1.9 of a legal reserve. These are categories under our forest code.
E por fim, o terceiro pilar do nosso plano, ele busca justamente incluir as populações menos favorecidas, que são os pequenos produtores e as populações tradicionais indígenas.
The last pillar is about inclusion. It's about social inclusion of
População tradicional.
Of traditional populations and indigenous peoples.
E para isso, né, nós pretendemos aumentar o mercado, nos mercados internos, a produção agrícola em 70%.
They want to increase the internal production by 70% of agriculture markets.
E atender com assistência técnica 100% dos pequenos produtores familiares.
And support small landowners by 100% in training capacity.
E promover a regularização fundiária, 70% dos lotes de agricultura familiar, porque Mato Grosso ainda é um estado, né, que tem a necessidade de fazer essa regularização fundiária com muitos conflitos.
They need to also solve the land tenure problems in the state, which they're working hard to do.
Esse plano é desafiador e vai depender muito da interação entre vários setores, público, o privado e a sociedade civil.
It's a very challenging plan, and we need the cooperation of the public sector, civil society, and the private sector.
E que para isso aconteça, evidentemente, nós precisamos contar com incentivos, né, econômicos e com investimentos e financiamentos.
To achieve that, we need economic instruments and financial investments.
Porque pretendemos que Mato Grosso seja um território, né, sustentável e livre de desmatamento.
We hope that Mato Grosso will become a sustainable territory and free from deforestation.
Então, esse é o plano para Mato Grosso, né, que nós tenhamos uma economia de baixa emissão de carbono, que nós continuemos conservando o nosso território e promovendo a equidade social. Obrigada.
So we hope that you have our sustainable strategies focused on social inclusion, environmental conservation, and sustainable production. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel.
Muito obrigado, Secretary Peterlin. And it's very encouraging to hear these new announcements. And we are going to stay in Brazil, and this is going to be our last announcement from the decision makers. And it's a pleasure to me, for me to present Mr. Marcos Sosai, who is an environmental scientist working at the State Environmental Agency of Espírito Santo, the state of Espírito Santo in Brazil.
Okay, Rachel, please. Boa noite a todos. Eu vou pedir também a ajuda da nossa amiga Raquel. Para nós é um prazer poder mostrar para vocês como que o Estado do Espírito Santo está cumprindo o seu compromisso junto ao desafio 2020, que é de restaurar 80 mil hectares até o ano de 2020. Primeiramente, o Espírito Santo, para quem não conhece, é um estado localizado na região sudeste do Brasil, é um estado de tamanho pequeno em relação ao Brasil, ele tem 4,6 milhões de hectares, está totalmente inserido no bioma da Mata Atlântica, que é um bioma de extrema importância para a diversidade, e hoje ele tem basicamente 16% apenas de floresta.
So, Sai, I need you to. Você precisa que você vá um pouco mais devagar. So, I'm asking him to go a little slower because I'm keeping all the numbers straight is complicated. I'm not a professional translator, so apologies for that. So he represents the state of Espírito Santo. You see here in the map, it's in the southeast of Brazil. It's 80,000, their pledge is restoring 80,000 hectares up to 2020. And it's a state of territory of 4.6 million hectares within the Atlantic rainforest biome. Mudou.
Pode mudar. Nós vamos cumprir nossa meta por meio do programa Reflorestar, que é um programa que apoia o produtor rural não só a manter a sua floresta, mas principalmente a recuperar novas florestas, e para isso a gente utiliza modelos que conciliem a conservação do solo, da água e da biodiversidade com a geração de renda ao produtor rural.
So you can see from the slides there, but I'll just focus 2 points. The Restore program, which he is the director, is focusing on conservation and restoration through payment for environmental services to landowners.
Pode passar. O nosso programa ele tem 3 linhas de ações principais, que é por onde a gente vai conseguir cumprir isso.
So the 3 focus of the program you can see here.
A primeira delas é o fomento ao produtor rural, que é por onde a gente espera conseguir cumprir 20 mil hectares.
So through supporting landowners, they hope to achieve 20,000 hectares of restoration.
O monitoramento de florestas em recuperação natural, por onde a gente deve conseguir pelo menos 60 mil hectares de restauração.
Another 60,000 hectares will come from monitoring natural restoration areas, natural revegetation areas.
E toda a gestão do programa que faz com que tudo isso possa acontecer.
And the management is the other pillar of the program.
Em relação ao fomento, vou citar apenas o pagamento por serviços ambientais, que é a principal estratégia que nós temos de estímulo ao produtor rural.
So the payment for environmental services is the main strategy to stimulate the landowners to engage.
No nosso PSA, a gente apoia repassando recursos financeiros ao produtor rural em valores que podem chegar a $2,6 mil por hectare para que ele compre insumos como mudas, cercas, para que ele possa recuperar suas áreas.
The program includes payment of around, so in average, $2,600 per hectare, and that helps the landowners to buy the equipment or the materials they need to plant and restore.
Com esse modelo, a gente conseguiu, em 2015, atender mais de 1.600 produtores rurais.
In 2015, they helped, quanto mil?
1.600.
1,600 landowners in 2015.
E estamos permitindo com isso, com investimento de mais de $7 milhões, iniciar a recuperação em pelo menos 6 mil hectares esse ano.
With investment of $7 million, they will restore 6,000 hectares this year.
E vamos repetir essas metas nos próximos 2 anos, reduzindo um pouco a partir de 2018.
In the next 2 years, the target is the same of 6,000 hectares, and then they will reduce after 2018 for about 3,000 hectares per year.
Pode passar. Em relação ao monitoramento, nós estamos finalizando agora, em setembro desse ano, um novo imageamento do nosso estado em imagens de alta resolução, em escala 1 para 10 mil.
They're finishing the monitoring of the program and of the whole state.
Nós estamos agora mapeando essas imagens para definir quantos hectares cada modalidade de uso do solo tem. Nós estamos definindo 25 modalidades de uso do solo.
They have defined 25 different land use types, which they are monitoring.
Já concluímos metade desse trabalho, e esse dado preliminar nos indica hoje 142 mil hectares de mata em estágio inicial de recuperação.
So through this process, they have managed to map half of the state, and they have identified 142,600 of initial recuperation stage of forests.
Acreditamos que ao final do mapeamento devemos ter cerca de 200.000 a 250.000 hectares de florestas em estágio inicial.
At the end, they believe they will have over 200,000 hectares of initial recuperation stage forests.
Nós vamos a cada ano atualizar esse banco de imagens para poder permitir o acompanhamento dessas áreas para que elas se tornem de fato florestas estabelecidas.
They will update and improve year by year to make sure that these forests will become real forests.
Pode passar. Nós também fizemos um estudo onde a gente verificou qual o potencial dessas áreas de se recuperarem naturalmente e, de acordo com essa capacidade, nós vamos estabelecer diferentes práticas de restauração que vão desde o isolamento até o plantio de mudas.
So here the mapping of the potential, what kind of restoration techniques should be used in what part of the country. Susai, acabou seu tempo.
Só para
Fala
finalizar,
só a última coisa.
ok, só para finalizar, a gente espera com esse dado conseguir também acessar o mercado de carbono para poder manter os investimentos do nosso estado e ampliar, inclusive, as nossas metas. Obrigado.
So they're hoping to get access to investments from the carbon market to be able to improve even further the project. Thank you.
Marcus, thank you very much. Well, this is the end of very encouraging 6 announcements from 3 states in Brazil, 3 countries in Central America, all joining other countries, other states in the 20 by 20 in this common challenge, but also common, I think it's really a dream to restore degraded lands, which is a very effective way to actually achieve multiple objectives. I will ask Walter to come in just for the final part of this session. Walter, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and wow, what a surprise from Mato Grosso, combining all the oils. Now 20 by 20 is at 28 million hectares. It's a big goal, big ambition. Count on our support. All of you, Minister Oquis, Minister Galdames, Jorge Mario, Secretaries of State of Sao Paulo, Mato Grosso, and Espírito Santo. Now, one of the key challenges to finance this restoration movement and to support the deployment of private sector resources is to manage risk. And we are counting here with the pioneering, ambitious development of a partial risk guarantee, one of the first done in the region. I think the first one to be supported by Jeff. It will be implemented by IDB. And here to tell us the details is the Division Chief for Climate Change at IDB, Amelie Aman.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, Walter. And thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And amongst these fantastic announcements from governments, both the national and state level, it's very impressive and really sets a very challenging agenda moving forward that I think all organizations, particularly organizations such as the Inter-American Development Bank, need to respond to work with yourselves to mobilize the finance and investment to deliver on these commitments and very impressive announcements. So congratulations. And as Walter said, yeah, we have now, we're very happy, we just received notification from the Global Environment Facility that we have a risk mitigation instrument was approved. We have a $15 million GEF project that will allow us to provide a risk mitigation using the 15 million in a first loss position that will allow us to put our own capital into investments as well as attract other private investments, particularly impact investors, as we've heard about here today. And so we are very excited. We'll be working closely with the World Resources Institute, with Walter and his team, to identify now some of the projects moving forward. And I think, as I say, we wouldn't really be able to do that without the very clear leadership coming from the governments. However, we also see that using the concessional resource available through the Global Environment Facility will really allow us to test out and do the more riskier types of investments that are necessary to deliver on the challenges moving forward on these investments. And hopefully moving forward we can demonstrate actually that these projects, these investments are not so risky, and actually they start to become more business as usual over time. But certainly where we are at this point in time, we see this risk mitigation instrument as being essential in really helping move this agenda forward and deliver of commitments that countries are putting forward now.
Thank you, Marlee. That was sweet and short. Many thanks. And we're counting on you to help us support the deployment of private impact resources under 20 by 20. I just want to say that tomorrow we'll have a discussion panel at 9 a.m. and you are going to be witness of 9 projects with a specific restoration involvement in several countries in Latin America. These are the first investments that are deployed on the ground under 20 by 20. The last thing I want to say is that the risk management tool that has been approved by the GLF and will be implemented by IDB is a very welcome development because it will reduce the risk for investments. Though it has been approved already, we are also anticipating the approval by the Green Climate Fund for a similar mechanism next March that will be managed by CAF. And we are also developing an investment readiness fund that will provide the resources for private sector to be deployed in the different countries at the very earliest stage. So they will have access to a robust portfolio of projects. In Nicaragua, there are a number of projects that are waiting to be financed. This readiness fund will support the development of the details that are required so that investors can take a very quick decision. So that's all for tonight. I want again to thank all the panelists, the ministers, secretaries of state, and the division chief from IDB. Very many thanks for being here. Thanks to you, and tomorrow will be another day. Thanks. So grateful.
Sorry, just to say really quickly, I'm the new intern at EPG. Yeah, and I recognize your name because I was reading one of your papers on China, and I was like, oh, this is you work at EPG, but I never actually met you before. And that was very like short and concise. Yeah, and it was to the point.
Many thanks to everyone for coming. For those of you who are interested in the regional declaration to promote climate-smart agriculture, that will be tomorrow at 5 p.m.
I'm working with Liz and
Okay.
Não, ele quer que fique pra mim.